Some of you may know Gerry Brooks, a Kentucky principal who's known for his humor on social media. Recently, I was lucky enough to hear Gerry present at a virtual conference, and that's been one of the silver linings of this whole pandemic is that there have been a lot of conferences online that are now free and that I could learn and grow from. And Gerry shared what are called object lessons, and I want to share one of those with you today. And I don't want to take any credit for this by any means because this is all Gerry, but I'm going to share some of my stories in relation to some of the things that Gerry said and trying to get this across. So my goal for this video is to share with you one of Gerry's object lessons. He had several that really stuck with me. Object lessons are important because when you see the object down the road, it helps you remember the story behind it and the message. So today's objects that I'm going to use are peanut butter and jelly. So peanut butter and jelly are my favorite. I've had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches when I was a kid. I had them all the time, all through school. I always ate peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all summer long. And I remember that my grandparents were not very rich, and I remember that at Christmas time for one of my grandmothers, we would get a coffee can size. So some of you are too young to remember, but a metal coffee can size full of peanut butter. And I thought that was the best gift ever that we could have gotten. Now, I found out later when I got older that my grandma was actually receiving subsidies and that peanut butter was free from the government. And so what I thought was a wonderful treat was something that she got free as part of her food subsidies. But I carried on that tradition of eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches even in through college and going into work. And part of the reason is it's just easy. You don't have to think about what you're going to have for lunch, and it's cheap. And also kind of silly, but when it came to work, I didn't have to wait in line to use the microwave. And so I could start eating right away. And sometimes I'd be done before some people got their lunch even heated up. So I continued on with that for quite a while. And I've always been a fan favorite of peanut butter and jelly. Gerry takes this in another angle, and he says to think about peanut butter and jelly as an acronym, the P and the J to represent professional jealousy. If you allow professional jealousy into your life, you cannot grow. If you allow professional jealousy into your life, you cannot grow. So he gave an example from the administrative perspective, and he said state tests. We have to take our state tests, and every year when those scores come out, the first thing you immediately do, administrators, teachers, everyone, is start comparing your test scores with other districts. And you see that you start celebrating when you've scored higher than other districts around you, and you're happy about that. But then pretty soon you see where you're ranked and maybe you're below other districts. And then all of a sudden when you realize you're not on top anymore, then that professional jealousy sets in. And that professional jealousy allows us to start making excuses. Well, of course they have higher test scores. They have more parental involvement, or of course they have higher test scores because they're a wealthier district. Our free and reduced lunch numbers are much higher than theirs are. And again, that professional jealousy keeps us from growing. So instead of reaching out to those districts that scored better than we did and saying, hey, let's celebrate their success and teach us what can we learn from you from their successes, the professional jealousy keeps us from doing that. The same thing from the teacher perspective we do as well. A colleague may be recognized in some way. Maybe they have their name in the newsletter for something that they did, or they were recognized on social media for something that they did with their class. Or maybe they were asked to speak at a staff meeting, or maybe even at a school board meeting. Maybe they were mentioned in Mr. Reber's State of the District address. Great, we should be celebrating with that teacher, but we all know that sometimes that professional jealousy sets in instead. And so when we hear that about another colleague, instead of celebrating that success, professional jealousy sets in and keeps us from growing. Instead of learning from that teacher, imagine them speaking at a staff meeting and sharing something that they learned, we immediately start thinking about, well, why wasn't my name in the newsletter? Why wasn't I asked to go to the school board meeting? Why didn't Mr. Reber say something about me in his district address? I've been here longer than they have, or I've done this, or do they even know what I do in my classroom? And again, all of that professional jealousy keeps us from growing. So think about the next time that professional jealousy starts to set in. If it kind of dawns on you, then put it away and think about how can you grow.